It's not from a consumer standpoint, but it does have merit from a business perspective. Let me speak. Why are games $70 to $80 now? And what is the evolution of game prices over time? Well, first we have to compare them to other industries. Movie industry. A movie adult manatee ticket was $5 in the year 2000 on average. Compare that to 2025, you're not going into a single movie theater without it costing 16 bucks. Why? Well, three things: inflation, production, and the want of the movie experience. Inflation. Things are more expensive, and money isn't at the same value as it was today as it was 20 years ago. Simple. But $5 back then, you just walked into the movie theater, sat down in a bare bones seat, and you watched the movie. Nowadays, that is not the case. Theaters pride themselves on their movie theater experience, in quotation marks. The movie theater experience are overpriced concessions that make the most in bulk of their money, but you also have seat warmers, recliners, you have buttons for quiet zones now in different theaters, and then you also have buttons that will get people to come straight to your seat to deliver food and drinks in the middle of the movie. That's why these tickets are now 16 bucks. You're not just paying for the movie anymore, you're paying for the entire experience of going to the movie theater, especially since you can easily just stream it and do it from the comfort of your own home. Why are games any different? Well, from a game perspective, you're not doing an experience. You're loading up a game into whatever console, PC you have, and you're playing the content. But that's not how studios see it. They see it in the same way as they see it as a service and an experience rather than just a piece of content. NES games were typically $50 when they released, and 64 games $50 to $60. PS2 games, $50 standard. Now you get into the PS3, Xbox 360 era. That is what we made to what was the industry standard of $60 a pop. And this stayed that way for a very long time. Mid to late 2000s, when the PS3 released in like 2007, 2008, all the way up until 2020, we went from PS3 all the way through PS4, Xbox 360, all the way through Xbox One with the exact same price of $60. That is an insanely long time to not have any price increases. How did companies do that? Well, that stayed that way because of the rise of streaming and the rise of subscription services and the rise of DLC and booster packs and deluxe editions and collector's editions. That's how they made their money. They made their money from other avenues, and that's why games prices stayed at $60. But that's not the case anymore. We have now entered the $70 era with the PS5, the Xbox Series X, and the late half of the Nintendo Switch era. $70 became the new AAA industry standard, and how companies justified this price was with increased development costs. Games now take millions of dollars to create, and the newest Call of Duty, $700 million. We have thousands, hundreds of employees that we have to pay salaries and livable wages to, and we simply cannot afford to sell this game to you for $60. Bullshit. That's bullshit, but that's the way they justify it. They say, oh, better graphics. We have better graphics for you, actually. We're going to, look at the old Call of Duty Black Ops 2 and now compare it to Modern Warfare 2 or, Black Ops 24, whatever year of Black Ops we're currently in. I don't know. But better graphics, so we have to charge you more because technology has advanced. And while that may be the case, you also have to account for the fact that they're not really giving you more content either. They're giving you the same package title, just with a better graphic standpoint, and then they're charging you more money for it. And that's all their excuses or justifications for why they have to charge this new $70 price point. And not all publishers went to $70 immediately, albeit Ubisoft did. They stayed at $60 for a while. Around middle of this generation is when they bumped that up, and even now we're starting to see the move to $80, but not all companies have. Nintendo did it with Mario Kart World, but they're not fully going into it. They're just doing it with Mario Kart so far. But Xbox, they instantly jumped on that gun with Mario, went to $80, and all Xbox games are going to be $80 from now on. And the way they're justifying that is that, well, you can just buy your Xbox Game Pass, and you'll get the game technically for free. Okay. But then there comes the big caveat and the big issue, and what these companies try to use against us is inflation. Games haven't increased that much if you adjust for inflation. $60 in 2005 is about equal to $90 in 2025, and with that logic, that would mean that we are actually getting these games cheaper than in real money value. But that's not actually the case. You also have to think about consumer value, right? $60 feels very different from $70, even though it's just a $20 increase. Perceived value versus actual cost is a huge marketing tactic that you have to employ. This is such a big deal, especially when it comes to things like indie games, right? An indie game can be just as much content, can have just as much value, but has to be lower in cost because of perceived value, i.e. Undertale, Deltarune, Hollow Knight. All these games are seen as masterpieces in their craft, and if you charge $70 for it nowadays, people would probably buy it. But they are indie games. They're not supposed to be $70 like these AAA titles because, well, they're made by smaller studios. So charging $15 to $25 makes more sense because that is the perceived value of what the consumer sees in it. And you have to use that as your thing, because at the end of the day, if your consumers are not buying your game, you are not going to sell. And indie studios need these sales in order to continue producing. AAA studios don't. They're huge. They have the marketing ploy to convince you to buy their game. So charging $80 for a new Mario Kart, which is one of the biggest games of all time, is fair in their eyes. And then you also have rising costs behind the scenes, bigger teams, longer development cycles, high quality assets, voice acting, motion capture, marketing, which is super expensive nowadays because they pump it into every social media platform: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Everything has to be seen. Your game has to be seen on every platform if you want to drive and get maximum profit from your product. And that would be all fine and dandy if the base game was actually what they charged you. If you got the full product right when the game was released. If we had Mario Kart World, every single thing that is going to be added in Mario Kart World for $80, $80 would be fair. But the truth is we're not, because there's monetization. Games now, they have DLC, battle passes, microtransactions. The base game is just the start. What are you actually paying for? You're paying for the bones. Mario Kart World, I can guarantee you Mario Kart is going to have booster bundles in the future. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years in the future, they're going to release $10 to $20 DLC packs that have new maps and new characters that should have been in release, but they held off on it. They held on it in order to show you that they've been producing this game for a long time. And Nintendo is guilty of this. They do it with their Splatoon games. Splatoon 3, when it released, was a bare bones title. Sure, it had more abilities, more things, and then they added these battle passes, and every 3 months they added more content that technically and honestly should have been in the game at release. Nintendo Switch Sports, which should have been the next big sports title from Nintendo. They were riding off of the Wii Sports hype. But what they did was they had all this content prepared, and then they put it behind release walls. DLC. Oh, you want to play golf? Give us 2 years to release it. Even though it most likely is already developed, we're going to hold off because we want more sales over time instead of just having as much sales as possible right off the start. And that's how businesses are doing it now. And it's not fair to the consumer, but from a business perspective, it is lucrative. It is the best way to do it. And now you have the new free-to-play model, which is increasingly becoming more and more popular. And while we are backing off of it a little bit, Fortnite and Apex and all those new games that come out really went in with the free-to-play model with having heavy in-game monetization, which has caused the consumer to be skewered on what game costs actually are. Apex heirlooms are $100 to $200. Compared to that, $80 Mario Kart is much more in consumer value than that $150 heirloom that you're buying on Apex. You're just buying pixels, but you can have something real physical in your hand if you buy the new Mario Kart game for $80. And then you have to increase for the fact that Valorant knives are $50, $60. What is actual value when it comes to video games? There is no standard, and that's what makes it so easy for these companies to abuse consumer value. We don't know what the value is. Why are in-game monetization so much more expensive than the actual game itself? It doesn't make any sense. And then there's extra stuff that Nintendo is writing on. The nostalgia factor, consumer expectations. Mario Kart World is so freaking there's so much expectation for what Mario Kart World will deliver, right? It's the first Mario Kart since Mario Kart 8 dropped on the Wii U. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is exactly what it is, a deluxe. It's the same game with added content pushed onto the Nintendo Switch because the Wii U failed to be a good console. But Mario Kart World is technically Mario Kart 9. It's the next big Mario Kart. And with that expectation, they can charge you more because this is the next Mario Kart. And what are you going to do about it? There's nothing you can do about it. Nintendo games don't decrease in price. Mario Kart World will be $80 today, and it will be $80 5 years from now. So if you want the game, you just gotta buy it. You just gotta bite the bullet, or you can buy it now with the bundle for $50. That's how they get you. So are these price increases actually justified? No. Well, kinda. Everything is money now. Businesses don't care about the actual consumer value of what it is. They just want to make as much money as possible right now. And when you look at it from that perspective, $80 is right. Mario Kart is an $80 game. Is it fair? No. But is it their fault that the industry isn't sustainable with current models? And that players aren't more aware what they're actually paying for? No. At the end of the day, it's just business.